be called to the member for North Sydney.
Thank you. I move amendments 1 and 2 on the sheet revised 19th of June 2023 as circulated in my name together. Mr Speaker, I rise today to move amendments to the Nature Repair Market Bill 2023, and I do so very cognizant of the systemic failure of the national environmental law we have witnessed to date. We've failed to adequately protect Australia's biodiversity and iconic places. Australia has a shameful distinction of achieving greater mammal extinction than any other continent. We don't just top extinction leagues among countries, we trump entire continents. My community of North Sydney has made it very clear that comprehensive reform of our environmental laws is needed, including increased government regulation and investment. We recognise the size and scope of the reforms required to not only protect but restore and repair our environment, and we are anxious to ensure this market-based scheme is a positive step and not one which sets efforts back. The Biodiversity Council survey released this week found a majority of people are concerned for Australia's biodiversity, with at least 2/3 very or extremely concerned about waste and pollution, land clearing, extinction of species and the loss of pollinator species and natural places. About 3/4 said more money should be spent on the environment, and scientists have said we need at least $2 billion annually to recover Australia's full list of almost 2,000 threatened species. Given the concern of many across my community and across the wider sector, my first amendment relates to delaying the commencement of the Act. The truth is many in my community are confused as to why the government is introducing a market-based solution as its first priority, given the size and scope of the new environmental reforms. I would like to reassure the chamber, though I have heard you, Minister, in terms of explaining your timing. I still move this amendment, though, because my community fears that without these as a strong foundation for reform, the market-based scheme that this bill establishes may well fail, and failure in a biodiversity protection could lead to perverse outcomes and set all of our efforts back significantly. It is my very clear view that this market should not be operational until after the new Offset's National Environment Standard is legally enforceable and the new Environmental Protection Agency is legally established. The Minister has indicated these reforms are on their way, with an exposure during the second half of 2023, so my amendment allows for a 12-month period for the broader reforms within which this repair market would sit to be developed, debated and passed. I ask the Minister then just to outline to all in this place and to my community once again her rationale for proceeding with this market mechanism before we have the framework of a solid environmental standards and a regulator to enforce them. My second amendment then would recognise that action on nature repair cannot happen in isolation to action on climate change. Overwhelmingly, my community of North Sydney has told me the #1 priority for the environment portfolio is to address the underlying causes of poor biodiversity, which are the human impacts, invasive species and climate-related impacts. The impacts of climate change, including drought, bushfires, storms, ocean acidification, sea level rise and global warming on our ecosystem are clear. We know many plants and animals cannot adapt to the effects of climate change, with 1,000 plant and animal species and ecological communities are already at risk of extinction in New South Wales alone. For this reason, I am proposing to amend the objects of this Act to ensure that climate change drivers and impacts are incorporated and integrated into every step of the environmental and biodiversity protection. The amendment adds the objective to promote the enhancement or protection of biodiversity against the urgent threat of climate change, drawing on the best available scientific knowledge to the objects of the Act. This wording mirrors changes that were recently passed in the Climate Change Act. I understand the Minister is not accepting these amendments, as actions on climate change are being covered by other legislation like the Safeguard Mechanism. However, I would appreciate confirmation from the Minister that she recognises that action on nature repair cannot happen in isolation to action on climate change. Thank you.